Successful people make mistakes. If there's one single characteristic that is shared by all successful people in life, it's that they make mistakes. In fact, successful people tend to make far more mistakes than those who are unsuccessful. Right now you might be thinking, that's ridiculous. How can someone be successful if they make mistakes? The reason is, successful people take action. A student who wanted to know the secret to achieving success in life went to a wise man who was said to have all the answers. The wise man had studied the lives of millionaires, explorers, inventors, successful people from all walks of life. "O wise man, what is the secret of success?" asked the student. The wise man was a man of few words. "Good judgment." "How do I get good judgment?" asked the student. "Experience." "How do I get experience?" "Bad judgment." Those who are unsuccessful in life are often so afraid of failure that they fail to act. I think most of us know at least one person in our life who is almost successful. This is someone we greatly admire because they seem to have so much potential. We look at them and think, all they need is for someone to give them a chance. Well, unless they seize a chance for themselves, they will never reach the top. Yet people who are almost successful in life tell a lot of stories about why they can't do it. Do any of these sound familiar? I don't think I'm ready yet. There's too much competition. I just don't have the money. What if I try it and it doesn't work out? There's not enough time. Just imagine how these people will feel when they're 80 or 90 years old and they look back on their life, and instead of seeing all the chances they took and the goals they achieved, all they'll see are excuses and reasons why they didn't try. One of the ways that people who are almost successful sabotage themselves is by catching a disease called analysis paralysis. This isn't a physical disease, but it's every bit as debilitating. Instead of taking action, people with analysis paralysis spend years studying, researching, comparing alternatives, and looking for the best ways to do something. They also spend a lot of time talking. An almost successful man I know tells people that he dreams of being a writer. But not just any writer. He plans to become a Nobel Prize-winning novelist whose books regularly top the bestseller lists. If you talk to this man, he can go into great detail about all the ideas he has. He's planned titles and thought of cover designs for at least a dozen unwritten books. But instead of actually writing, he fills up his spare time watching TV and socializing with friends. Every now and then he'll start an activity that can help him get closer to his dream, but always with the same result. He started creative writing classes, but quit after only a few lessons. He bought himself the best word processing program for his computer and a complete set of reference books. They're now collecting dust in his basement. The activity he spends the most time on is talking about how successful he'll be one day. Like all of us, he's afraid to fail. But unlike those who are successful, he lets that fear stop him. So he won't do anything that actually involves taking a risk, such as reading his work before a creative writing class or submitting a story to a literary magazine. After all, if he were unsuccessful in these relatively small efforts, what would that say about his chances of becoming a Nobel Prize-winning best-selling author? Maybe he doesn't know that even best-selling prize-winning authors sometimes get rejected. If you study the biography of any successful person, you'll find that no one who's ever achieved success in life has done so without failing at some point. Abraham Lincoln was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1847. He lost his seat 2 years later. Of course, you know he didn't let that stop him. In Canada, a man named John Diefenbaker was defeated in 8 tries for public office before being elected. He eventually became the country's prime minister. You probably know that Babe Ruth hit more home runs than anyone else in his time. But did you also know that because he took risks, he also had more strikeouts than anyone else? When Thomas Edison was inventing the electric light bulb, he failed in more than 900 tests before he finally discovered the right elements to use. Today, many of our most successful business people have bounced back from bad deals, business failure, and even bankruptcy. I have a personal experience. When I was in my early 20s, I took out a bank loan to publish a book I'd written and ended up with a basement full of books that I couldn't sell. Soon, the bank was demanding several $100s a month from me in interest payments. I was receiving overdue notices from credit card companies, and my rent was due. I was tens of thousands of dollars in debt with no job and no source of income except the little money I was able to make from pawning my jewelry. I lost a tooth because I couldn't afford to pay the dentist to save it. For a while I felt like a complete failure. Then I picked myself up and decided to use the information I'd learned from my experience as a book publisher to help others avoid making the same mistakes. The first thing I did was to develop a continuing education course for the local Board of Education. It didn't pay much, but it was sold out every time it was offered. And since I had to develop lecture notes, I decided to put them into a booklet which I sold at a profit through mail order. Then I found that some of the people who attended my class or saw one of my booklets wanted personal consultations. Within a few years, I'd paid off all my debts while doing work that I loved as an instructor, author, and consultant. For successful people, down does not mean out. Instead, successful people consider setbacks to be inevitable steps along the way to achieving their goals in life. In her book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, Susan Jeffers, Ph.D., says that fear of failure is not the real problem. The problem is how we let it affect us. To overcome fear, she recommends something that you can start doing right now. Take at least one new risk every day. The more you risk, the more successful you will be. And even if a particular risk doesn't turn out the way you want it to, you'll feel more powerful and less fearful than the person who lets life just happen to them. A study by Cornell University psychology professor Thomas Gilovich found that when we try something and it turns out badly, we feel intense pain, but only for a short time. But when we don't take the risk, the pain of regret is much longer lasting. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You must do the thing you think you cannot do." So take some risks and make some mistakes. You can't make it to the top unless you do.